I think I put Bradford as a D.
Yes, you did. Now I got to pull it up right here. You have him as a D.
And that was because I felt like, I heard a lot of people kind of apologizing for Bradford with the drops by his receivers, and yes, that's true. However, he gave up way too many sacks because he held onto the ball way too long. I think the moment Jason Peters goes out of the game, Bradford needs to put in his head that the moment I hit my back foot on my last step in my drop back, I need to be looking to get rid of the ball. I can't expect this offensive line to hold that pass rush for too long. And to me, I thought that was on him. I mean, that was squarely on him. And some of the drops that took place, I mean, yes, it's easy to blame these receivers. They're in the NFL. If the ball hits your hands, you have to catch it. But at the same token, he's throwing behind them. The last one on fourth down to Miles Austin, I mean, that was a little bit high. Now, granted, Austin needs to try to come down with that, needs to make a better effort. But it was a little high. And, I think his throws need to be more accurate than what they have been.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, Bradford, the drops are a big issue. Knowing that you can get that fourth-round pick, if Bradford plays less than 50% of the snaps, you get a fourth-round pick. Would you sit him coming out of the bye and start Sanchez, meaning he would not play 50% of the snaps if you start Sanchez against the Cowboys in 2 weeks?
I saw you floating that around Twitter today, and I thought it was an interesting question. I'm not ready to go there. I'm really not. I just don't think that Mark Sanchez for 9 games would be anything more than perhaps 5-4 at best. Is Sam Bradford that? Maybe. Is he less than that? That maybe too. But I just think that at this point, we know what Mark Sanchez is, and I'm just not confident that at this point the playoffs are still a very real possibility.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Scott. I understand. I'm not saying Sanchez is a better quarterback, but is he more comfortable in this system? Does he have a better rapport with the wide receivers? And if the answer is Sam Bradford's not my quarterback in 2016, do I at least try to recoup a fourth? And I've already seen that Sanchez can win games for me. It's not like he's so abysmal that he can't. I mean, he went to Dallas last year and beat them on Thanksgiving Day. He's capable of doing just as much, if not more, than Bradford. If I could get a fourth-round pick, if Bradford's not your quarterback next year, then what? Then do you at least think about recouping that pick?
I understand the conversation. I've become so soured on Mark Sanchez as a starting quarterback over any kind of period of time. I just don't want to see that. And unless, Bradford's knocked out and it's because of health issues, I just don't want to go there with Mark Sanchez. And I just don't know that a fourth-round pick is value enough to sit him. If it was a second or even a third where you could get a Jordan Hicks potentially.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. If you get the fourth-round pick, that would give the Eagles 2 fourths and 2 thirds, giving them much more flexibility to be able to get back into the second round and recoup the pick they lost by getting Bradford in the first place. And that's when you start talking about putting together a package where, you could look at getting something much better. And honestly, if Bradford's not the guy, then you start looking at moving up in the draft to maybe get a young quarterback for a change. Right.
Because we're still waiting for Chip Kelly to hitch himself to a quarterback for the future, and it doesn't look like Bradford's that guy.
Okay, let's go through. Let me get Chip Kelly from you. I thought he was awful last night. I mean, you gave him a D. I thought you're being kind. I thought his game plan was terrible. I thought Chip Kelly, when you grade Chip Kelly, you got to Chip Kelly. The GM's got to be in there. And part of the F's that you gave out is Chip Kelly.
Yes, Chip Kelly to me did definitely. His play calling was awful. I just don't understand when the running game is going early on. Like DeMarco Murray had some good plays in that first drive. Where's the play-action pass? Isn't it supposed to work at that point? And there weren't any of that. Why not take a shot downfield? I mean, you could draw a penalty because they're coming out in bunches around the league this year, but this team doesn't try to take those shots, so we don't see if that happens much. I just think he's got to be a better play caller. He's got to have more rhythm in his play calling. To me, it looked like he was just trying to bulk up on the first possession in touches for DeMarco Murray so that he could go away from that later in the game and DeMarco would still have his touches. It was way too much Murray right off the bat. The 50-yard field goal attempt after he nailed a 52, I think you're going to that well way too often. The 3rd and 9 screen pass to Josh Huff, that's a bad call in that situation. You had 2 downs to get 9 yards, but when you don't get any on 3rd down, you're not going to go for it on 4th and 9. I think there was a bunch of plays where I don't know, his head was in the clouds or something. I don't know what was going on there, but I mean, for a genius on offense, he's got to do a better job, and he's got to realize that his wide receivers were not contributing. Yes, they continued to drop passes, but Bradford's got to keep going back there. They got to call those plays, or they got to go to Ertz more. I mean, there's a problem, and nobody's going to respect this wide receiver core, nor do I blame them, until they start making some plays.
Yeah, you mentioned Ertz dropped 3 passes. He was targeted 8 times. There was a lot of catchable balls that were dropped. There was also some plays that the one to Huff in the end zone. Do I want my wide receiver, Scott, to catch that football? Absolutely. But the problem is they don't have enough talent to expect those guys to make outstanding plays. That's an outstanding catch, him twisting and turning backwards. So that's where Bradford, yeah, the drops aren't helpful, but he's got to make better throws. It just seems like a clunky marriage at this point.
Yeah, and honestly, I was watching the other side of the ball. Those guys in black and blue, I mean, they were making some great catches over the middle. I mean, Cam Newton was not perfectly accurate last night, but his receivers made him look good. I mean, they bailed him out and made some great catches. Ted Ginn Jr., I mean, these guys are making plays that Jordan Matthews and Zach Ertz need to come down with those passes. Josh Huff, these are NFL receivers. They need to make those catches.
No doubt. Grayson's grades are all posted at 973ESPN.com. And one grade I would disagree with you on here is Kelsey. I thought Kelsey was horrendous last night. He's been getting whipped all year. He got whipped last night. I thought he was awful last night. You were way too kind to him, my man.
What did I gave him a C, didn't I?
Yeah, he was an F-.
Well, hey, you didn't have a bad snap.
I mean, he was very frustrating to me because, as you wrote, he's normally rock solid. So maybe I expect too much from him, but this has been multiple weeks that he is really struggling. I thought Short dominated the interior of that line and really, threw off a lot of the game in terms of he was getting a lot of push and he was very disruptive.
Yeah, I would say this about why I gave him that grade. I tried to keep in mind, too, that the offensive line totally got shuffled and mixed up with Jason Peters coming out. And, I mean, that does change dramatically the dynamic when you're taking a guard and putting him out at tackle where Peters is and you're putting a new guard in. And everybody's got to try to find that chemistry again. When they've just started, it seemed like to start getting in a good spot on that line. I mean, I tried to keep that in mind, that some of what Kelsey was dealing with was trying to pick up some blocks that may have been shifted his way by guys who didn't maybe pick up the right guy down the road from him.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of your other grades were very good. Tobin, I agree. I thought, considering the situation being moved, I thought he played pretty well. When they lost Peters, it wasn't a disaster until late in the game when everybody knew they were passing. I thought Maxwell, as you said, probably played his best game. Jenkins and Carroll really played well. Obviously, a lot on the offensive side of the ball, though, got the lower grades, and you can check them all out. Grayson's grades every Monday after the Eagles at 97.3 ESPN.com. All right, Scott, good stuff, pal.
All right. Thank you, Mike. We'll look forward to next week's bye week grades, all A's.